This is a rendering of a human sacrifice being conducted by a 15th century Aztec priest. And if you're wondering whether the heart was still beating when they yanked it out of the victim's chest, the answer is yes.
The Aztecs did some pretty dark and disturbing things back in the day. I'm just glad that some of their practices and rituals aren't a thing nowadays. From human sacrifices to human victim stew. Let's talk about this and more only in today's video. Top 10 dark things the Aztecs did. Starting off this countdown, we have the human sacrifice. Human sacrifice was actually a very important aspect to the Aztecs. They believed that they needed to do these sacrifices because their gods had sacrificed their lives to create the world and them. As a result, small human sacrifices were made throughout the year. These would typically coincide with important calendar dates. Other times, these were performed to reverse droughts and famine. One big sacrifice would occur in the spring, where they would honor the god of vegetation. As a result, they would sacrifice captured warriors. Their skin would then be peeled off, and the priests would wear the human skin for 20 days. Other times, the victims would have their chests split open, and their still beating hearts would be offered to the gods. Their blood would be spilt on the temple altars, and then their bodies tossed away. Coming in at number 9, we have the ritual cannibal.
Becoming dinner.
And if you guys are liking this video so far and want to see more videos like it, then make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Yeah, I know we can't say that word on YouTube. It's ridiculous. Anyways, the Aztecs would engage in this during times of famine. During battles, they wouldn't kill their opponents. Instead, they would capture them for sacrifices, for maybe when they needed a snack. Not only that, but they thought that consuming the flesh of someone that they offered to the gods was a way to connect with the gods. In fact,
becoming dinner
was considered a great honor. It was something that they were proud of. In our 8th spot, we have the hungry wood. The hungry wood is the name of a very dangerous weapon that the Aztec warriors made and used. Back then, they didn't have the ability to forge, so there were no metal weapons. Instead, they would use a flat wooden paddle and then attach sharp volcanic stones to the sides of it. Apparently, the weapon was so sharp and powerful that it could decapitate a human's head. There's even a story of an Aztec warrior using this weapon to decapitate a horse's head, all in one strike. That's how sharp and strong this thing was. I would hate to be on the other end of that bad boy. In our 7th spot, we have the human stew. The Aztecs had a pretty interesting stew recipe. So on typical days, their stews would consist of pork, garlic, and a corn product. But on rituals, they would add human meat to it, some flavor. On ritual days, sacrificed people were added to the stew and then served. Yummy. In fact, when some archaeologists unearthed some Aztec cooking items, they found incomplete human skeletons next to it. Moving on to number 6, we have the Aztec style. The Aztecs' concept of beauty was much different than what we consider beautiful nowadays. As a result, they would file down their teeth because they liked the look of them. Sometimes they would even fit them with precious stones, kind of like how nowadays people get diamonds on their teeth or grills. I swear. History always repeats itself. On top of that, women would stain their teeth dark red. How would they do this? Well, with a dye that came from a parasitic beetle. Yeah, no thank you. They believed that red teeth made them more attractive. I just draw the line at beetle. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the slackers. If you were a young Aztec, the punishments were brutal. A boy who was caught slacking and not doing their work would be subjected to a cruel punishment. His teacher would grab him by his hair and drag him outside for everyone to see. And then the teacher would cut off all of their hair, but leave one little tuft of hair on their head. This was known as the tuft of shame. But that's not all. They would then take a burning piece of wood and burn your head with it. This was humiliating for a number of reasons. Number 1, being grabbed by your hair was a symbol that you got captured in war and you were going to be sacrificed to the gods, meaning you were a failure. I mean, that sure is one way to get them to always do their homework. In our 4th spot, we have the human stretching. Back then, it was believed that in order for a child to grow, they needed to be stretched. I mean, how were they supposed to know that we just grow on our own? In order for their kid to grow up nice and big and tall, they would stretch them. Basically, they would grab them by their neck and dangle them in midair. Then they would pull on every part of the body to make sure that the parts grew out evenly. That wasn't the only thing they had to do to make sure that their children would grow. They also had specific rules they had to follow, or else it was believed that the gods would curse them, and then their kids would grow up short. For example, during meals, the younger brothers had to let their older brothers drink first. During an earthquake, parents had to grab their children by their necks. Now, I don't know how that has anything to do with height, but they certainly believed it did. In our third spot, we have the cutting. Young, noble Aztec individuals were ordered to cut and injure themselves on a number of occasions. They had to perform this auto-sacrifice frequently. If they did something wrong, then they had to go out to the forest alone and stab themselves with thorns. Even if they were just accused of doing something wrong, they had to do this. Students at the Commonwealth had it worse though. Every night at midnight, they had to do this prayer. Prayer involved stabbing themselves in the shin bones with thorns. Sometimes they even had to cut their arms open and put reeds in their wounds. The bloody reeds and the thorns were then sacrificed to the god of the sun. In our second spot, we have the widows. Widows had it really rough back then. Not only would they lose their husband, but they also had to go through a pretty dark and gross mourning period. This was an 80-day period of grief. During this time, they were not allowed to wash their face, hair, or clothes. Hiram and Brad Mondo are shook right now. Apparently, the dirt and filth symbolized how they were feeling on the inside. Now, they had to do this for 80 days because that was considered the time it takes for their husband's spirit to reach the afterlife. Only then, after the 80-day period, could they move on with their life. And in our number one spot, we have the God of Fire and Wisdom. This is the Huatailt. Now, I hope I pronounced that right because I was just going off of what Google told me, so I apologize. So this was the god of fire and wisdom. As a result, they held a number of ceremonies for this god. Now, there were two different rituals that took place at this ceremony. For the first ritual, someone would be thrown into a pit of burning hot coals. Just before they were burned alive, though, they were hoisted up by hooks and placed on an altar. Then their chest was cut open and their heart was removed for the fire god. For another ritual, after the heart was removed, a priest would start a fire in the victim's chest. It was believed that if the fire was successful, then the temple would continue on successfully for another 52 years. If it wasn't successful, then they believed that the monster Zitzamime was coming for them, and this monster was going to devour all of the Aztecs. Alright guys, that's all for today's video. Let me know which one of these facts shocked you the most. And now let's move on to our comment shout out portion. I'll be shouting out comments from the video, top 10 mysterious artifacts that will make you question reality. Queen Natasha commented, can you do a shout out? Because I love your merch. I really want to get it. Where do we get it? So this is my merch. I also have another design. It comes in black and white. Just follow me on Instagram and you'll see there's a link to merch in my bio. So it's on Teespring. Meredith Gray commented, can you do scariest animal encounters, please? Ooh, I don't know if we did that one. If we didn't, then that's a really good topic. I might look into that. There might be a video like that coming soon. Mr. Death Buzzard commented, let me stop you right there. The answer is aliens. It's true. Aliens could be behind everything. The pyramids, Stonehenge, everything. So maybe they're behind Area 51 too. Who knows? Alright guys, that's all the comments I'm shouting out for today's video. Make sure to comment something down below for a chance to be featured in my next comment shout out. And as always, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to Most Amazing Top 10 for more amazing videos. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan, and I'll see you when I see ya. The Aztecs' idea of beauty was much different than what The Aztecs' concept of beauty is The Aztecs, sometimes they would even they had to perform this auto-sacrifice regularly. They had to perform this auto-sacrifice regularly. Am I saying it weird? Regularly? Sounds like I'm going regularly. Apparently the dirt and filth symbolized. It was believed that if the fire was successful, then the temple would continue on for a number. They believed that if the fire was successful, then the temple. They believed that if the fire was successful, then the temple. Wow. They believed that if the fire was successful, then the temple would continue on successfully for number 50. They believed that if the fire was successful, then the temple would continue on successfully for a number... Why am I saying number?